From dominating the sport to finishing below Haas this season, McLaren has fallen horribly from the top. And now, the team has fired its staff because of just how bad this season is going. Here's the facts. McLaren is doing absolutely terrible lately. I mean, 2 races have gone by, and the team has a grand total of 0 points. McLaren is one of only 2 teams that have as many points, the other being AlphaTauri. So here's the problem with that. Bottom-tier teams such as Haas, Williams, Alfa Romeo have managed to do better than the working-based teams so far. And it's not even a one-time thing.
Very happy. Nice to get some points on the board, and what better place to do it than here at home. So no, thanks to all the fans for the home support. Yeah, nice to get on the points.
So, it all started with preseason testing in Bahrain, when the team's gearbox got all wonky and stopped working. It had to be shipped all the way to England so the engineers at the factory could figure out what the heck was going on. But here's the problem, right? Even after that, things didn't seem to get better. Because then, in the first race of the season, in Bahrain, Oscar Piastri had electrical issues with his car, and he had to retire it in the 14th lap. Yes, his first ever F1 Grand Prix lasted a mere 14 laps. But things weren't going super well for Lando either. He slugged away, trying his best to race, but he only managed to finish barely. He came in P17. But that wasn't good enough since 3 drivers had retired. In other words, out of everyone that raced that day, he came in dead last. At the same time, he pitted for an unprecedented 6 times that race, because the team just couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong with his car. But when Saudi Arabia Grand Prix was around the corner, fans started feeling hopeful, even though there were no signs that the team was going to improve. And it didn't. McLaren did just as bad in Jeddah as it did in Bahrain. I mean, it wasn't as bad, but it was still quite horrible. The good news was, both drivers did manage to finish. The bad news was, they didn't get a single point. Lando finished P17, just 1 position above, since we had 2 cars not finish the race, and Oscar finished P15. Both the drivers finished a whopping 85 and 86.5 seconds after the race leader, Sergio Perez.
The new team and the MCL60 together for the first time. The next time you see them all will be at testing in Bahrain. Thank you, Zach, Andrea, Oscar, and Lando for joining us. We wish you all the best of luck.
That's just not something you can take too lightly. On top of everything, qualifying in Australia didn't go super well either, with Oscar qualifying P16 and Lando qualifying P13. The working base squad just can't seem to catch a break, and because of that, McLaren has fired its technical director.
I think, everything's about incremental gains, so, we're not betting everything on the wind tunnel or the new simulation or the new manufacturing, but it's a combination of all that's going to allow us to take steps forward in all those areas. So it's all about chipping away at the gap that there is to the front of the field.
The boys in Papaya have sacked their technical director, James Key, and they've restructured their entire design office because of a disappointing start to the season. McLaren's technical department had been under Key for a while, but it just struggled to adapt to life under the new ground effect regulations. That was introduced in 2022. In the 2022 season, the team slipped from 4th to 5th, and in the 2023 season, I feel it's gonna slip way below that, especially since we've got Aston Martin now. The team itself admitted and acknowledged that it missed crucial development targets for this year's car. And honestly, McLaren has been so far behind in the races that it started to feel like F1 versus F2. The car is as slow as a freaking tractor, yet it's still super fragile, because in Saudi Arabia, it just couldn't sustain that first lap damage that it had to deal with, and it couldn't push after sustaining that damage. However, the team did say that it's going to improve by April. Well, okay, McLaren did pin all its 2023 hopes on a major upgrade due in April. But looking at how things are right now in recent days, team principal Andrea Stella has tried to lower the expectations of fans and pundits. He's claimed that the upgrade won't be that big of a deal. On top of that, the CEO of the team, Zach Brown, has claimed that he's admitting that his team's technical development isn't moving in the right direction, and it hasn't matched the team's ambition to return to the front of the grid. But restructuring is coming, and don't just take my word for it. Here's what Zach said. Having completed a full review with Andrea, we can now implement the restructure required to set the wheels in motion to turn this around. And that means no more James Key.
And above all, for me, it's been about assessing the team, setting the vision, the mission, making sure that everyone is on the same page, everyone understands the priorities, and then work hard to get the job done.
So, the question is, who's going to replace him? Well, it's a little more complicated than just replacing him straight up. So, here's what's going to happen. Key's director role will be split into 3 positions, and all these positions will work under Stella, and each of these blokes will be responsible for a separate part of the car's development. Honestly, this is starting to seem like a recipe for disaster, but let's see how this turns out. David Sanchez, an ex-Ferrari chief vehicle concept engineer, has been confirmed as a new hire. The Frenchman spent a decade in Maranello, and now he's going to work his magic for working. He'll start as the technical director for car concept in January of 2024. Then we have Peter Prodramau, who's going to be promoted to technical director for aerodynamics. He was Adrian Newey's protege from Red Bull's title-winning years in 2010 to 2013 before he joined in 2014. But don't expect him to create a car as amazing as the RB19, because what you gotta remember here is, we're in the era of ground effect aerodynamics. Back when Peter worked with Newey, cars didn't have that, so he doesn't know how Newey's brilliant mind worked it all out. Then we've got Neil Howdley, who's going to be promoted to technical director for engineering and design. This guy spent 18 freaking years with the team. But that's not all for the changes within the team. Aerodynamicist Giuseppe Pesci will be taking the role of aerodynamics director and chief of staff beneath Prodramau. And we've also got Piers Tyne, who's the team's new COO, who's going to be supporting Stella. The mission that McLaren's been working on is basically innovating and elevating the standards. Honestly, sounds like a good freaking mission, because the team has spent way too much time being a laughingstock. Here's what Brown said about the whole thing. It's important now that we ensure we have a solid foundation as the next phase of our journey. He also assured the fans of the team that these strategic changes will ensure the long-term success of the team, and it's super necessary, especially if McLaren wants to go back to its winning days. Brown also talked about how everything is starting to come into place now, with its people and its infrastructure. He also praised his driver lineup, and he seems quite confident that if he gives them a championship-winning car, they're going to win the championship. Now the question is, what's in store for the future? Well, there's some good news for sure, because McLaren is working on a new wind tunnel. Right now, the team uses Toyota's wind tunnel in Germany, which is expensive, and of course logistically challenging. And all the transfer of parts between working in Germany creates quite a lot of issues, such as delays in development. Plus, that simulator was built 20 years ago. That makes it horribly outdated. So this new tunnel, which is apparently state-of-the-art, will be a game changer. So there is something to be optimistic about. Fingers crossed. And folks, that's everything on how McLaren has fired its staff because of its worst season yet.
What a depressing post-race meal. Chicken and avocado wrap.
That's freaking amazing.